Imagine a world where no one forces you into silence, no one locks you away, and yet you stop thinking for yourself. You stop questioning. You stop feeling the depth of life. In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, the danger wasn't a boot on your neck. It was the velvet touch of comfort, the lull of endless entertainment, the seduction of pleasure so constant, it numbed the soul. That vision wasn't just a story, it was a warning. And if you look closely, you'll see pieces of it in the world around you right now, maybe even in the life you're living. We've been taught to chase whatever feels good, to keep moving toward the next little hit of excitement, the next distraction, the next like, the next purchase, the next escape. And on the surface it feels harmless, even deserved. After all, life is hard. Don't we earn these moments of relief? But here's the quiet danger. When every moment is filled with a rush of stimulation, we lose the ability to hear the softer, deeper truths inside us. The constant noise drowns out the voice of our own soul. Joe Dispenza talks about how the brain's reward system is trained by repetition, the way an animal is conditioned in a cage. But this cage, it's invisible. And because we can't see it, we don't notice how small our lives have become inside it. Every scroll, every binge, every quick fix teaches the brain to crave without ever feeling full. We think we're choosing. But what if our desires are being manufactured for us? What if the freedom we believe we have is only an illusion carefully wrapped in convenience? This is where the real conversation begins, not with judgment, but with awareness. Not to shame you for the pleasures you reach for, but to ask, what are they costing you? Have they begun to replace the very things that make life worth living? Because the truth is, chasing pleasure without awareness doesn't just waste our time, it drains our spirit. It pulls us away from presence, from depth, from the kind of connection that leaves us truly alive. And if this is already stirring something in you, if part of you is thinking, this is me, I've been living in this loop, then I want you to stay with me until the end of this video. Because over the next few minutes, we're going to look at how this loop works, how it takes hold of your mind and heart, and more importantly, how you can begin to break it. If you've been feeling restless, empty, or disconnected, if your life feels full on the outside but strangely hollow on the inside, then this conversation is for you. Before we go deeper, take a second to subscribe, like, and share this video. Not because it helps this channel grow, though it does, but because I believe there's someone you know who needs to hear this. Someone who feels the same quiet emptiness you do, but hasn't yet found the words for it. And maybe, just maybe, this will be the moment that sparks their awakening. What we're about to explore isn't about rejecting pleasure or living in deprivation. It's about seeing clearly where your freedom ends and the programming begins. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin to reclaim the parts of you that comfort alone could never touch. You begin to remember what it feels like to truly be alive. Some desires are born from the heart, from something ancient and true within you, but most of what we crave today isn't. It's planted, shaped, and carefully cultivated, not by your soul, but by an endless stream of screens, algorithms, and advertisements. Every day, without even noticing, we're fed images of a life we didn't know we wanted until someone told us we should. A new product, a new trend, a new lifestyle. And before we can ask ourselves why, our bodies already lean toward it. Our minds already feel the pull. This is not an accident. Modern media and consumer culture have mastered the art of creating needs that never existed. They work directly with the chemistry of your brain, spiking dopamine in sharp, quick bursts. It's the same neurochemical pattern you'd see in gambling or certain addictions. It's a cycle designed not to satisfy you, but to keep you reaching for the next hit. It promises fulfillment, but it delivers only anticipation. And anticipation without true satisfaction becomes hunger without end. Aldous Huxley foresaw this in Brave New World. In his imagined future, people didn't revolt against their rulers because they were too busy enjoying themselves, too distracted to notice the invisible strings. Today, our version of this is the endless scroll, the curated feed, the short video that keeps autoplaying. The feelies he wrote about were sensory experiences designed to thrill without nourishing. We live in that reality now. Every flash of novelty excites the senses, but leaves the soul untouched. The problem is not pleasure itself, it's that this loop of manufactured desire rewires the brain over time. When dopamine becomes the main currency of our satisfaction, we lose the ability to find joy in stillness, in subtlety, in the quiet moments that require our full attention. We begin to equate stimulation with meaning, and anything that doesn't light up the brain instantly feels boring. But life's deepest treasures rarely arrive with fireworks. They arrive slowly, in layers, in ways that cannot be packaged and sold. This is why so many people feel restless, even when surrounded by comfort. It's why a perfectly good life can feel strangely empty. Because the loop doesn't want you to arrive anywhere. It wants you to keep moving, to keep consuming, to keep chasing the next thing, never stopping long enough to realize that what you're searching for can't be bought, downloaded, or delivered in a box. The loop is not broken by more of the same. It's broken by the radical act of noticing it. And when you begin to see how it works, when you see that so much of what you thought you wanted is not truly yours, you begin to create space for desires that are real, desires that belong to you, desires that can actually be fulfilled because they're rooted in the truth of who you are, not in what the world is selling you. Comfort is seductive. It whispers that you're safe, that nothing needs to change, that you can stay right where you are and never face the storms outside. It offers warmth, familiarity, and the absence of pain. And on the surface, it seems like the perfect refuge. But when comfort becomes the place you live instead of the place you rest, it begins to quietly transform into something else. It becomes a cage without locks, one you don't even realize you're inside. The walls of this cage are made not of steel, but of habits. The same couch, the same shows, the same foods, the same digital escapes. Each choice feels harmless, even deserved, but over time, the muscles of the soul weaken. Resilience fades. The part of you that was once willing to face discomfort, to grow, to risk, to stretch beyond what you know, begins to shrink. In this way, comfort doesn't just protect you from pain. It shields you from the very experiences that make you stronger, deeper, more alive. There's a quiet tragedy in this. We often think of cages as things that trap us against our will, but the most dangerous cage is the one we choose willingly because it makes us feel good in the moment. The price we pay is subtle, the erosion of emotional depth, the dulling of curiosity, the slow fading of connection, not just with others, but with ourselves. Think of the person who has endured deep loss, grief that shook their entire being. The pain feels unbearable, so they fill every moment with noise, with entertainment, with anything that can keep the ache at bay. And for a while it works, the pain recedes into the background. But over the months and years, something else happens. The ability to truly feel joy, love, or meaning begins to dull as well, because the same walls that keep the pain out also keep life itself from fully getting in. Aldous Huxley's vision was not of people oppressed by cruelty, but of people softened into passivity, people so insulated from discomfort that they no longer questioned the life they were living. This is the danger of the comfort cage. It makes us believe we're free simply because we don't feel threatened. But true freedom is not the absence of challenge. It is the presence of choice, even when that choice leads us into the unknown. To step out of this invisible cage, we first have to recognize that it exists. We have to see how comfort can quietly keep us from living the life we came here to live. Not by force, but by slowly convincing us we no longer want anything more. And that is the moment of awareness, when the door quietly swings open. It rarely happens in a sudden collapse. Imagination doesn't usually shatter overnight. It fades quietly, almost politely, until one day you realize it has been gone for a long time. It begins with small trade-offs. You stop daydreaming on the train because you're scrolling. You stop scribbling thoughts in the margins of your notebook because you're too tired. You stop looking at the night sky with questions because the answers are already on your phone. Little by little, the space where wonder used to live becomes occupied by noise. As children, our minds were vast, boundless terrains. We could turn a cardboard box into a spaceship, a blanket into a castle. But as life moves forward, that open landscape narrows. Responsibilities arrive, schedules tighten. The mind, once wild and untamed, learns to color inside the lines because it's safer, faster, more efficient. In the process, something essential is lost, not just the capacity to imagine, but the courage to let imagination lead us somewhere uncertain. This death is quiet, but its effects are profound. Without imagination, we stop envisioning a life beyond what we can currently see. We stop believing we can change the shape of our reality. The inner compass that points toward possibility begins to malfunction. Instead of asking, "What if?" we begin saying, "That's just the way it is." And with each repetition of that phrase, the walls of the comfort cage grow thicker. But here is the subtle truth. Imagination is not just a playful luxury, it is a survival mechanism. It is what allows us to see a way forward when there is no visible path. It is what keeps the soul from collapsing under the weight of the present moment. Without it, we become trapped not by external limitations, but by the limits we have accepted in our own minds. Think of the great shifts in history, in art, in science, in personal lives. Every single one began as a seed in someone's imagination, an image, a vision, a possibility they refused to let die, even when the world around them said it was impossible. To lose imagination is to lose the ability to reshape your future. And so the death of imagination is not just a personal loss, it is a quiet surrender. It is choosing a life where nothing unexpected will happen because we no longer allow ourselves to dream it into existence. But the ember can be reignited, and when it is, the air changes, possibility returns, and the walls we thought were permanent begin to dissolve. It doesn't happen with a single event. It creeps in like a slow frost. At first, you'd notice it in small ways. The music that used to make your chest ache now feels like background noise. The laughter that once left you breathless now barely lifts the corners of your mouth. Even pain, once sharp and undeniable, dulls into something muted and distant. You tell yourself you're fine. You tell yourself you're just tired. But beneath those explanations is a quieter truth. You've grown used to not feeling. Numbness is not the absence of emotion. It is the body's last defense against an overload it can no longer carry. It's what happens when the heart has been asked to endure too much without enough space to heal. The mind, in its desperate bid for survival, shuts down the pathways to deep feeling, thinking it's protecting you. But the cost is steep. You stop touching the extremes of joy and sorrow, and with that, the vibrancy of life itself begins to fade. What makes numbness so dangerous is its comfort. Pain hurts, anger burns, sadness weighs heavy, but numbness asks for nothing. It doesn't cry out, it doesn't demand change. It's quiet, predictable, and in its stillness, it can feel safer than feeling. You start to build your life around avoiding disruption. You keep conversations surface level. You avoid situations that might stir the waters. You tell yourself you prefer peace, but deep down you know it's not peace. It's the absence of living. And yet, this quiet existence comes at a price. The same barrier that shields you from pain also shields you from joy. The same walls that keep out heartbreak also keep out connection. Over time, you realize you're not just avoiding the bad, you're missing the good. You are no longer moving through life, you are merely existing within it. But numbness is not permanent. It is not who you are. It is a season, a symptom, a signal that the heart is waiting for a safe place to open again. And when it does, when even the smallest flicker of feeling returns, it can be overwhelming. But that flicker is proof that you are still here, that beneath the frost, something alive is still waiting to grow. Freedom feels like choice. 100 options appear before you every day, and each one tempts with the promise of self-determination. But often, choice is only a mask, a carefully constructed illusion that hides the absence of true autonomy. The options we are offered are curated, guided, and predigested by the culture around us. They look like freedom, but they are framed in such a way that our minds rarely step outside the box we are given. This illusion is subtle. You might choose a television show, a meal, or a weekend activity thinking it expresses your will, but the patterns beneath these choices are often invisible. They are shaped by habit, by advertising, by the constant pulse of expectation. And in that shaping, the deeper choices, the ones that could transform your inner life, your relationships, your sense of purpose, fade into the background. We trade true liberation for the comfort of thinking we are free. In modern life, this mirrors the ways we bypass ourselves spiritually. We seek what feels good in the moment rather than what heals deeply. We select affirmations that soothe without confronting the wounds that run beneath. We follow routines that distract us from facing truths that might reshape us. And in this way, comfort and distraction conspire to create the quiet consent of the soul, a compliance without coercion. The irony is that in trying to avoid difficulty, we often trap ourselves in a smaller, shallower existence. Every choice we make in avoidance narrows the field of possibility. The mind, trained to favor comfort over growth, becomes blind to the paths that would lead to true expansion. The heart, when denied challenge, loses its courage to open fully, and the soul, starved of risk and adventure, begins to feel the heavy weight of quiet captivity. Yet the illusion is not permanent. Awareness itself begins to fracture the walls. When you recognize the difference between what is given and what is chosen with intention, the landscape of life changes. True freedom is not the absence of barriers. It is the presence of conscious choice. It is the willingness to confront the discomforts, the unknowns, and the inner truths that shape you from within. In that willingness, the cage begins to dissolve, and the first breath of genuine liberation can finally be felt. The present is quieter than the noise we've been chasing. It doesn't promise thrills or instant gratification. It doesn't sparkle or dazzle, yet it holds everything we've been searching for in its subtle folds. Karl Pribram's holographic brain theory reminds us that reality is not fixed. It is projected, shaped by the patterns of consciousness we carry within us. Every thought, every attention, every feeling is part of the field that constructs the life we experience. When our minds are dominated by distraction and shallow pleasure, the world itself narrows. When we reclaim focus, stillness, and conscious engagement, the world expands in ways we might have long forgotten. Bruce Lipton adds another layer. Our biology is not set in stone. Our cells respond to perception, environment, and belief. When we shift the mental and emotional environment we inhabit, we reprogram the very systems that shape our experience of life. This means that freedom is not a distant concept or a far-off escape. It begins with small acts of conscious presence. A pause here, a breath there, a refusal to chase every fleeting desire. Each act sends a ripple through the hologram of your consciousness, reshaping what was once thought permanent. Imagine stepping out of a brightly lit room, walls lined with screens and endless entertainment, into the open night sky. The air is cool and deep. The stars are distant, vast, and silent. For the first time in a long while, you can breathe without distraction. You can listen to your own thoughts, feel your own heartbeat, and realize that even the smallest moments contain depth, possibility, and meaning. That is the doorway back to yourself. Begin simply. Look at one pleasure you habitually chase. Notice it, observe it, and then, for a moment, allow stillness, creativity, or depth to take its place. Not forever, not with judgment, not with guilt. Simply for a single moment as a witness to yourself. And in that witnessing, you reclaim the choice that was always yours. You reclaim the present. You reclaim the life that cannot be bought, sold, or manufactured. The path is subtle, but profound. It asks for awareness, patience, and courage. It asks us to see where the invisible chains lie and to step outside them with compassion for ourselves. In this reclamation, there is freedom, the true freedom that Huxley warned about, the freedom our brains and bodies are capable of realizing when we finally choose presence over distraction, depth over numbness, and consciousness over the illusion of control. And now, as you carry this awareness forward, pause for a moment. Feel the breath in your chest, the pulse in your veins, the quiet intelligence that has always been within you. Notice the life waiting not in the next click, the next screen, the next fleeting pleasure, but here, in the simple act of being awake, fully alive and present.